And hello and good morning. I'm David Boles. Nice to see you. It's 9 a.m. on a Monday on the East Coast. And we are here with you live every single day now, Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. with me here on Boles TV, BOLES.TV, and then on Saturdays and Sundays. The lovely and talented Jana Marie Sweeney joins you in her Ask a Deaf Person show. And that debuted yesterday, and it was, and Saturday. Yesterday was Sunday, and Saturday. Big, blossoming, wonderful success. Fun stuff. Deaf, hearing, talking about sign names, talking about Zoom communication. It's all in our video on demand library. So if you are a subscriber to this channel, you can go and watch it as soon as this live stream is finished. So many things to discuss today. Some fun things, some sad things, some odd things. It's the human condition. And that is what we're going to discuss every day with you here. So speaking of Jana Marie, you may remember that there was a holiday office decoration competition in her office that she was competing in. And she had been handcrafting artifacts for this contest, this Christmas contest, holiday contest, since July. And she was determined that she wanted to win. However, the contest was being voted on Friday, and Friday is her telecommuting day, so she couldn't be in the office to vote or to be a part of the holiday festivities. Not included in the holiday festivities, even though it's an official event. No interpreters provided. So she celebrates from afar in her own way. And half an hour before voting was to commence on the holiday decoration winner for the office, someone sent out an email with photographs saying, "Look at my office. Vote for me." And this was kind of a higher-up person. This wasn't one of the lowly people in the office like Jana Marie, who does all the dirty work. This was someone up in the chain. So to have that kind of power and saying, "Vote for me," you know what's being said. Vote if you know what's good for you. Well, Jana Marie is a born fighter, and she's funny, and she's lovely, and she replied to that message saying, "Oh yes, well, I'm not in the office, and I'm not one of the bigwigs. I'm just a regular old Jana Marie. And oh, by the way, here's a video I took of my office." Oh, this is the wrong one. This is the video that I took of my office. And she attached it to the email. And why is it green? Now, we don't know. Technology. And we showed this a week or two ago here, right here on this live stream, and she has improved it since this video was made. But she was at a disadvantage where she didn't want to, compete with the upper muckety mucks. So she just said, well, I'll send a link to everyone of my office and my video and my handmade decorations that we're looking at right now. And just see what happens. And what happened was, there were a lot of people in the office who were not really aware of all these wonderful decorations because there's social distancing and separation, and not everyone is in the office at the same time every day because of COVID. And when people are in the office, they tend to stay away from each other because of COVID, even though you have to be vaccinated and you have to have a mask on. So even though Jana had this decorated beautifully for many weeks, not very many people were able to see it. It was a little sad. But after sending that link, oh, well, my, how the turntables turn. And Jana Marie became the winner of the office decorating contest. It was all through the power of the video. People she hadn't seen or worked with recently replied to her message and said, "That's just absolutely beautiful. I had no idea that was even there." And Jana Marie won. She has no idea what she won, but she finds great satisfaction in the winning. So many congratulations to her. And speaking of winning, on her way to work today, Jana Marie sent us this for sharing. This is the winner of the Holiday Path Train drawing contest. And as you know, in a previous video that Jana Marie sent us a couple of weeks ago, she showed us all the entrants, and this is the one that won it all. Deservedly so. It's absolutely delightful. PATH, P-A-T-H, Port Authority Trans-Hudson is what that means. Which means the PATH train goes under 2 tunnels, under the water, the Hudson River water, to get back and forth between New York City and Jersey City and Newark and other points along the way. So it's a vital transportation hub, rather newer than the subway, but still old, but always creeping forward. And even though we haven't really had any cold snaps, it's 25 degrees here today, a little bit cold. I love that this is polar bears and ice and a penguin as the conductor. Absolutely delightful. So congratulations to Jana Marie for her deserved win. She's already talking about a repeat for next year. We have several interesting ideas. Now, does she just retire as the winner, never to play again? Or does she defend her title? I have some ideas on how to defend her title, but they're probably going to cost a little bit of money. But should a little bit of money prevent her from winning again? Because she would win again. If she did my idea and we did it all out, she will win. 100%. And we'll make a video. And she will win 100%. So our friend, I say with a smirk and a smile on my face, Joe Biden, is having a very hard weekend. Other than Manchin giving him the brush off on Sunday. And it's very interesting because Joe Manchin is not going to play along. And he said that from the very beginning. So I don't know how anyone can be mad at Joe Manchin when he says, "I'm not doing it." And everyone said, "Well, we win Joe, we give Joe what he wants, then we'll get everything approved." However, there's sort of a second nut on the tree that's waiting to fall. And she can't wait for her moment to step into the spotlight. Kyrsten Sinema is going to be Joe Manchin too. And whatever Joe wants, she's not going to want it. So you have 2 senators holding all of Biden's agenda hostage. Which sort of, I guess, serves the people right because they didn't give a big enough win to the Democrats. It's too close to call. And people say, "Oh, well, Joe Manchin's going to leave and become a Republican." No way that's happening. If Joe Manchin said, "I'm a Republican," he would go over to the Republican side and be forgotten, swept under the rug. He would be the last in line for anything. He would be seen with a smile and a handshake, but he would be seen as a traitor. Couldn't trust him. Always wondering if he'll flip back to be a Democrat. And if it's all about power and money, Well, he's getting a lot of that where he is right now as a Democrat. He's holding up all this stuff just because of who he is. And he flips to Republican, he loses it all. So he's not going anywhere. Same with Sinema. She can threaten it all they want. We're going to return power to the Senate, to the Republicans in the Senate. If they did, it would be absolute, complete career suicide. And maybe they're dumb enough to try it. But one thing you know about the two of them is they're not dumb and they're money hungry. Because that's what all this is about. It's not about power. It's not about doing the right thing. It's about them getting lobbying money. And speaking of money, Joe Biden is eating it again on student loans. Oh boy, he's losing everywhere. Every time he turns around, he's losing, and this is by his own hand and by his own decision making, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And so the world suffers. And there was a great article over the weekend about how many staffers who work on the Hill went to good schools, got out of where they lived, working on their own. They have thousands and thousands of dollars in student debt, and they don't know what to do about it. They can't pay. And they're working on the Hill. They're working for these people who are denying them student loan relief. It would be funny if it weren't quite so sad. So there was this big meeting, I guess, on Friday, and this is the reporting. It made me sick to my stomach. One such tense meeting, described by someone familiar with what happened in the conversation, happened on Wednesday, reported on Friday. Loan forgiveness advocates relayed to members of Biden's domestic policy and economic teams that beyond the actual economic, legal, and policy implications of lifting the loan repayment pause, the move was bad politically. These people wanted to sound the alarm to the Biden administration about what they believe to be a very serious political mistake they're about to make. I tried to make it myself last week, right here on Boles.tv. Then I took that snip, snip, nip, 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 snip, snap, snip, snap, and I made it into a podcast for Human Meme, and I sent it out there. Joe Biden slags student loan borrowers. You can go to humanmeme.com and listen to that right now. So all these student loan advocates were trying to talk to the White House, saying, what are you doing? You're going to restart these payments in the middle of Omicron. When Trump stopped the payments, you're going to start them again, and we're going into an election year. Are you stupid? Biden's team was not moved by the argument. Multiple sources familiar with what was said at the meeting described the administration's message as effectively that borrowers had 2 years to prepare for this, and they knew the pause wouldn't last forever. One administration official in the meeting suggested that overall the pandemic was trending in the right direction, and that resuming student loan payments is part of getting back to normal. What kind of evil villains are sitting in the Biden White House? It's absolutely shocking. And the Democrats wonder why they can't get young people, why they can't get smart, poor people to vote for them. And they don't vote Republican. They just don't vote. And that helps the Republicans. Because engaged, hungry, anxious people need relief on many different counts. And Biden doesn't care. Why, my friends ask me, why? And as I said before, last week, it's very simple. Joe Biden is owned by the big banks. He has been owned by the big banks all of his Senate career. He represented Delaware. Delaware is where the headquarters are for all the big banks. And he is beholden to them. They give him money. They want money from these loans. wants. He's not going to go against the money stream. So if you're going to get mad at Joe Manchin for being loyal to his money people and Kyrsten Sinema for being loyal to her money people, can we be mad at Joe Biden for being loyal to his money people? Well, Joe Biden said $10,000 off the top. All student loans, $10,000 off the top. He's not doing that anymore either. The White House also pulled that kind of bullshit of the fundamentals of the economy are strong, which is devoid of reality. The first source familiar with the conversation added, yeah, sure, the stock market might be better. Unemployment numbers are better. Oh, yes, absolutely. But in terms of real wages, in terms of how people are feeling in their pocketbook, it's just completely delusional. So people are trying to do the right thing, trying to talk to Biden, saying you got to do something about these student loans. People are not ready to start paying them back February 1st. And Joe Biden said, go slam sand. And it's sad and true. Now here's a lovely photograph from a while back that just sings. And this is why people love AOC. And if you've ever been married, or if you've ever had a serious relationship with a woman, or a man, you recognize that look on AOC's face. That is a facial expression. American Sign Language, what's the facial expression for wait till we get home, young man? That is the look. Staring daggers. Oh, boy. And that's Joe Manchin standing and applauding a Donald Trump speech. So she knows, they all know, that Manchin cannot be trusted, that Manchin is not reliable, that Manchin is not one of the Democrat mainstream. And I understand his state voted 40% for Donald Trump. Donald Trump won West Virginia by 40%. So Joe Manchin's got to kind of walk a tightrope. Is it over? I don't know. Joe Biden has said, well, about Manchin, when you only have 50 senators on your side, every senator is the president. And that's why we need people like AOC to step forward. Now, talking about loans, big article just this morning, so fantastic, about these student loans that are killing people right now. Not just old people like me and my friends who are suffering, and we're going to go to our graves paying these ridiculous student loans. This is from the Wall Street Journal. NYU is top ranked in loans that alumni and parents struggle to repay. Front page of the Wall Street Journal today. And here, look, I subscribe, but look, I can click here. Wall Street Journal members sharing this button, unlock this content for recipients. So here we go. It pays to watch Boles.tv. So I've copied the link. I can't read the whole article to you here. I've copied the link. Now I'm in chat. I'm going to type Wall Street Journal and NYU loans and put in a link. Ooh, it's a long link. Bing, bang, boom. So there you go. You can go, now that we're in live chat, you can go and click on that link, or in video on demand. Click on that link and read that article for free. It's really long, well-written, harrowing. What are these kids going to do? Well, here's what some of that article suggests. NYU skimped on scholarships for needy undergraduates during the past school year. NYU covered about 62% of undergraduates' financial need on average. That was the lowest percentage of any private school with at least $1 billion endowment that publishes such figures. And so, as a result, parents of NYU undergraduates often relied on PLUS loans to cover costs. Parents of 2018 and 2019 NYU bachelor's degree recipients who took out Parent PLUS loans borrowed a median of $74,000, according to the most recent data. That's more than at 99% of other four-year colleges in the United States for which federal data is available. For NYU's graduate students, and that's where they make all the money. Undergraduates, they give a lot of support to. Graduate students, not so much. You want the advanced degree from NYU, you pay. At least your first year, and then maybe we'll see if we can find money from you. Unless you're an undergraduate and you're going into a graduate program at NYU, then we'll fund you. But if you're coming from the outside, you're paying. For NYU's graduate students, the university's advanced degrees often don't pay off. In 40 out of 49 programs, NYU graduate students who took out federal loans borrowed more than they earned 2 years out of school. By that measure, NYU had more graduate programs with high debt loans than any other U.S. university with published data. The debt and earnings figures are medians for the 2015 and 2016 graduates, the most recent data from the Education Department. Many NYU programs were worse by that calculation. In 15 graduate programs, including music, international relations, and education, NYU ranked highest among U.S. universities with published data in terms of debt loan compared with early career earnings. So that's terribly sobering that it's not just old people who've been trying to pay their loans for 25 years, it's young people who are in the middle of taking out the loans who are getting squeezed and tormented. Is this a school problem? Is it a federal problem? Yes. And in getting relief, I take you to the quote of the day. Biden's team is not moved. That's our president. He's ticking off really smart people who are very active and who owe a lot of money and who are very, very desperate. And on that note, my friend, it's time for a small blood pressure break, from which we will return momentarily. Back from break. I'm David Boles here on Boles.tv. BOLES.tv. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate you very much. And oh my gosh, I get so many people wondering, hey, what's wrong with you? These kids don't have to go to these expensive schools and take out all these loans and have all this money. And theoretically, okay, that's true. However, when you're dealing with desperate people who know they're smart, who need to get out of the town in which they are stuck, reasonable and rationality doesn't play a part in it. Because all of these kids have big egos. They think they're going to make it big. They're going to take the world by storm. And who's to tell them no? Because in their small town, they're the smartest, the best, and the most promising. And they need to find out in the real world if they measure up. And many of them do that through going to school. An expensive school. And if you apply to an expensive school like Harvard or Yale or Columbia or USC, and you get in, and there's some financial help, you want to do everything you can to get there. And parents feel the same way. And why is that? Because that's where your peers are, eventually, who you will hope to work with. And that's where all the smart faculty are. No matter what you say about a community college system, it's fine, it's great. It's there to serve a purpose. But if you're looking for a genius mind to teach and challenge a young genius mind, you're probably going to find that mind available at one of the elite schools. It's just how the system is set up. Universities pay a lot of money for very smart people. And I remember when I was at Columbia, we had moved from Nebraska, Washington, D.C., there. And you had to go through a student loan review. Each of us. And none of us knew each other. And we had to go sit down with the School of the Arts financial resource person. Bernice was her name. And she sat down there, and for about 20 minutes, she would berate us. What are you doing here? Why are you taking out all these loans? Who do you think you are? Maybe you'll make it, maybe you won't make it. How are we ever going to pay these back? Maybe you'll be okay because you're in theater, but the poets, oh, these poets I deal with, they're never going to pay any of these loans back. And she hit you over the head for about 30 minutes, and then finally approved all your financial aid packages, and you went back. And so some of us never met, first time together. Somebody said, hey, what do you think about that Bernice? And oh my gosh, what an uproar that came out of all of us. Like, what is she doing? Why is she working here? Who is she to give us that news now? The day that school is starting. We have uprooted our lives. We have moved to New York City. We have gone into debt. We have signed paperwork. We have leases. We have girlfriends and wives and kids. And here we are trying to make it in New York by going to Columbia University Graduate School, and Bernice is telling us how stupid we are and how we're going to be poor the rest of our lives. And maybe she's right, but that was not her context or her time to have a conversation with us. Her job was to push the paper to make sure the loans go through. We don't need to hear the rest of it, Bernice. Thank you. And that has stuck with all of us in our class for many, many years, that conversation we had with Bernice. It's like Bernice should have been assigned to us before we even agreed to go to New York. Have that conversation with her on the phone. Don't come. You're never going to amount to anything. Don't do it. And some people complained about it and to her, but of course it's a big system and nobody cares. Well, that's her job, to review their financial responsibility. My financial responsibility began 3 months as I moved to New York City and applied for all the loans. That's when the conversation should have happened. But anyway, also in the news, remember last week we talked about touching the eye of God, going to the sun and touching it, and how we thought, oh my. The scientists thought that the sun was, the atmosphere around the sun was fuzzy, and they said it turned out to actually be sharp and wrinkled. And then we made the old standard office joke that I will not repeat now. And this is the first data we have back from that wonderful exploration of the sun. And I'll be honest with you, I really don't know what I'm looking at here. But people online seem to be really thrilled with this, so I'm sharing it with you in case you get something out of it. I guess that this is what the explorer saw when it went through the atmosphere. These flashes. And there are people who say, oh, you can see the Milky Way. I can't believe it. You can see the Milky Way in the sun. Now, I don't know where the Milky Way is in all of this, and maybe it's in that last frame right there on the right, where that thing is kind of angled to the left. Is that the Milky Way? I don't know. No, I guess those are planets you can see up there. I don't not really know anything about this. But people are very excited, as I am excited about the idea of touching the eye of God, even though I really don't know what's happening. Which I could probably say is true for most of my life. Let's just go through, find fun things. If we understand it, great. If we don't, we can ask for more explanation later. But people who know say that's a big deal. And speaking of big deals, I saw this over the weekend. Isn't this the most magnificent image? 1920, Statue of Liberty. And this photograph was taken from her torch. You used to be able to climb the inside of her arm and have a lookout on the torch. It's been closed for many, many, many years because I guess the arm was unstable, it was dangerous, and I could kind of understand that. Going up her arm and coming back down, that would be a frightening experience every day for thousands of people who visit the Statue of Liberty. But I didn't know she had wavy hair. And now we know. And she parts it right down the middle. Really a beautiful shot. And you see there are people peeking out the windows. I don't think you could peek out the windows anymore of her crown, looking up at the photographer. Now that's New York. You look at this and all your student loans just go away in the peaceful bliss of looking down at the Statue of Liberty. Now for something totally different. Fascinating news over the weekend that has not been widely reported, probably because it has to deal with poo, and people get very uncomfortable talking about intimate body excretions. But here we are. Researchers are reporting that people with inflammatory bowel disease, IBD, have more microplastics in their feces, in their poopy, than healthy controls, suggesting that the fragments of plastic could be related to the disease process. Now, we have known for many, many, many years that these microparticles of plastics are in our fish, they're in our landfills. If you look for rivers in India, you will see rivers packed with plastic bottles, water bottles that have been thrown away and are now clogging canals and rivers. In New York and New Jersey, we have outlawed plastic bags for shopping. You now have to use paper or recyclable plastic that's not going to turn into these microplastics that end up in your poopy. The prevalence of IBD, which includes Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, is rising globally. Characterized by chronic inflammation of the digestive tract, IBD can be triggered or made worse by diet and environmental factors. Microplastics can cause intestinal inflammation, gut microbiome disturbances, and other problems in animal models. As a first step to finding out if those microparticles have anything to do with IBD, researchers wanted to compare levels of microplastics in feces from healthy subjects and people with different severities of IBD. Now, isn't that an interesting thought? We talk about doing research all the time here on Boles.tv. And scientists come up with an idea, and they wonder if it's right or wrong, and they report it. And the history has been, if the report is confirmed, the suspicion, the investigation is confirmed by the research, then it gets published. If it's not confirmed, it usually does not get published, which is a sad factor because we need to know what was tried and failed as well. So imagine the person who says, I wonder if there are microplastics in people's poopy that's making them sick. Very interesting. And then to sift through the poopy to see what was going on. The team obtained fecal samples from 50 healthy people and 52 people with IBD from different geographic regions of China. Analysis of the samples showed that poopy from IBD patients contained about 1.5 times more microplastic particles per gram than those from the healthy subjects. The microplastics had similar shapes, mostly sheets and fibers, in the two groups, but the IBD poopy had more small, less than 50 particles. The most common types of plastic in both groups were polyethylene terephthalate, PET, used in bottles and food containers, and polyethylene PA found in food packaging and textiles. People with more severe IBD symptoms tended to have higher levels of fecal microplastics. So, there you go. The question is, how are people getting these microplastics in their poopy? And it must be only one way, because people are not eating plastic bags. They're not eating recyclable garbage cans. They are eating, most likely, animals. The animals, the fish, are eating these microplastics as part of their feed. Not on purpose, it's just there now. It's part of the eco-environment. And they eat these infected fish and animals, hogs, cows. And what they eat is what we eat. Most people eat. I don't eat that. I'm vegan. And they get sick. They have plastic in their poopy. And it would make sense that if you're eating plastic, it's not going to go well. It could contribute to inflammatory bowel disease. Of course it would. Why wouldn't it? And there's always a big saying in the vegan exercise world that people are always concerned where we get our proteins. And usually it's from beans and greens. Those are the two big things. Soybeans, lentils, plants. And people say, well, that's not enough. You got to eat the meat to get your protein. And some people say, well, I get my protein from where a cow gets a cow's protein. What do you mean? Cows are big and muscular. You eat them. And what do cows eat? They eat grass. And now it seems they're also eating plastic. So be careful of what you eat. I don't know if they're going to start having plastic warnings on your hamburger or on your mahi-mahi or on your sushi. I don't know how you can prevent eating plastics and getting it stuck in your poopy. There's got to be a way, though. Someone will figure it out. Also in the news today, this is very complex and hard to understand, but I'm sharing it with you anyway because you're probably smarter than I am and you know what it means. But there was a big study over the weekend that was shared about HIV. And the big quote of the day is, the viral genome from HIV is made in small amounts, and this is kind of related to COVID and how it replicates. And that's what this does, how HIV replicates in your body. And if you can stop it from replicating or address the replication process, then you can stop it from continuing its damage in the body. But the viral genome from HIV is made in small amounts and is very selectively packaged as genomic RNA. In addition to serving as mRNA, we know that from COVID, to make viral proteins. How does the virus find this genomic RNA to package and is not just packaged by any old RNA in our cells? Well, researchers believed they could find an answer to that question. They might eventually be able to develop drugs that could block the virus from replicating and stop it from infecting healthy human cells. So this is what's so beautiful about the medical industry, is we start with HIV for 30 years, trying to figure that out. Then COVID-19 hits, and a scientist says, I've done a lot of study on this mRNA thing. Maybe we could use that to stop COVID. And it did, and it works in the vaccine at least. And now they're using that same kind of theory to figure out if they can block and prevent HIV in the same way. Researchers examined the structures of two nearly identical HIV RNA strings and found that the virus used two nucleotide difference on the very end of the RNA strings to distinguish between genomic RNA and viral mRNA, that's COVID, in the family. One they found was more efficient at being packaged as a genome than the other due to the conformations or structures that it formed. Very, very interesting. RNA is a string of nucleotides, and it is present in some form or another in all living things, including viruses like COVID. In HIV, RNA carries the genetic information that allows the virus to copy itself inside the host, the human body. HIV RNA comprises about 9,800 nucleotides. Wow! Hey, Tiki T, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that very much. Hope you're doing well today. So a lot of interesting things are happening in science and research. And it reminds me of one thing that I saw over the weekend, talking about COVID and mRNA and viruses and how things spread. And there was a story of a daughter who was severely overweight and her father, who were both in the same hospital at the same time with COVID. The daughter was complaining that she could not see her father. They had been separated by the emergency staff because they didn't want them reinfecting each other. And this woman was coughing and very ill, but she was giving a television interview. And the television interviewer asked her, "Did you get the vaccine?" And she said, "I'm not saying either way." Now, when someone says that, you know they did not get the vaccine, because people who are vaccinated are very thrilled to share the fact that they're vaccinated. Even in the South, even in places where people don't want to be vaccinated. When you're vaccinated, you go through it, you're proud of the accomplishment. So she didn't say she was not vaccinated, but we know she's not vaccinated. And she's still coughing and wheezing, trying to get air. And the interviewer then asks the very good next question. Well, do you believe that other people should be vaccinated? And this overweight woman with COVID-19 in the emergency room of the hospital said, I'm going to remain neutral on that. And you just look at her and you think, what kind of disconnection is going on in your mind? You're very ill. You are wheezing. You cannot breathe on your own. You are sick with COVID, and so is your father. And you're not going to say if people should get the vaccine or not. And that's why we're in trouble in America, because there are a lot of people who think just like her. Johnny Rogers, talked about it last week, superstar athlete, University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Won the Heisman Trophy 50 years ago. Got sick, COVID. I think he's 72 now. I'm strong, I fought back. And he's telling people, go get vaccinated. Don't go through what I went through, because you're not as strong as I am. You can't survive it like I did. Get vaccinated. Hey, Dora's here. Hey, nice to see you, Dora. However, Johnny Rogers, superstar, Johnny Rocket, would not say if he was going to get vaccinated. He wants other people to get vaccinated, but I'm sure he thinks he's now safe from getting COVID. But he's not. He's going to have a hard time. So this new Omicron variant that's taking over the world in 2 or 3 weeks, the experts are very concerned it's going to be overwhelming the emergency system. And in some ways it already is. People are changing their plans, thank goodness. This is very smart, because this is very sticky and it makes you sick much faster than the Delta virus. And there are whole swaths of people, especially, unfortunately, in the South, who are unvaccinated and who think they made it through. And Omicron is coming for them, and it's going to make them very sick. The vaccinated, we have breakthroughs. Maybe we'll be okay. But this is now a pandemic of the unvaccinated. And they're going to find out rather quickly that it's not going to go well. But you can't tell them, because they don't believe in science. They don't believe in doctors. But the second they get sick, they run to the hospital because they want help. It's a disconnect that is very hard to understand. And now, we're going to take, right now, a little blood pressure break. We can refocus, reinvestigate, a lot more to talk about. I'll see you soon. We are back from break. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Glad to have you with us. I'm David Boles, here on Boles, BOLES.TV, talking about a lot of things this morning. Oh, we have so much to get to. So interesting. And talking about COVID and people dying and getting infected, it reminds me of something that my old mentor, Marshall Jameson, told me one time, which I thought was fascinating. And he said the good thing about being dead is you don't remember. Now, he was a highly religious man, really. Well, his wife was, but he was too, sort of in the end. And I thought that was an interesting thing to say, that if you're dead, you don't know it. It doesn't matter, you don't remember. And the context of that conversation was that he had I don't even know if they're doing it anymore. The surgery on the side of your neck where they... And they do this on old people. And everyone I know who's had this surgery has not come out of it well. They've either had a stroke, or they've died, or they've had a very hard time and not felt well. Where these doctors cut open the side of your neck and open, I guess, your artery that is clogged with cholesterol, and they cut open that vein, artery, whatever it is. They scrape out all the fat and cholesterol, then they sew it back up, then they put staples, like 25 staples, in your neck. And they used to do it on both sides. And then they found out that was killing too many people, so then they do it on the one side that's most clogged. And my mother-in-law had that surgery, very rough for her. And my friend Marshall had that surgery. And it did not go well for him. And I said, what do you mean, what happened? And Marshall said, well, they did this surgery, the cholesterol clean-out surgery. And he did not wake up. And he was a big guy. He was 6'5", 200 pounds, not fat. And he was an old guy. When I knew him, he was very fit, very deep voice, very tight. He was terrified to be in the room with him. A sweetheart, but very intimidating. And they said that he died on the table. For about 5 minutes, he was dead. And then for some reason, he woke up. And they had taken everything off of him. You know, I guess they had been doing CPR and all kinds of extreme measures, shocking him, trying to keep him alive from this surgery that did not go well. And he woke up and he looked at everybody, and all the nurses around him were crying. And they weren't just crying, they were sobbing. And he looked at them and he said, what's wrong? And they couldn't speak. They were just crying and crying. And he's getting a little upset. He's saying, what happened? Why are you all crying? And finally, one of them said, you're dead. You were dead for 5 minutes. We called you. We wrote it down. You're not supposed to be alive. And of course, inside Marshall said it was God speaking through him and waking him up. But he looked at them and he said, what do you mean I was dead? And they described it. You had no heartbeat. You were non-responsive. Your limbs were non-reactive. We made every best effort we could to bring you back, and we could not. Your heart had stopped. You were dead. You did not make it through the surgery. And Marshall said, but I'm here. And they said, I know. That's why we're crying. And so Marshall told me that story, and he said, I have no memory of being dead. I did not know I was dead. As far as I knew, as I went into surgery and I woke up and everything's fine. I don't remember one thing. I don't remember them trying to save my life, pounding on my chest. I have bruises all over my chest from whatever they did. He liked to call it a zipper. I have the zipper down my neck where they stapled my carotid artery, whatever, closed. He hated that thing. And he had to stay with it like 3 weeks. He had those staples in. So I thought that was very refreshing. So he said, I have no fear of death now. For whatever reason, I was brought back. And he lived for another 5-10 years after that, in very good health. And in his early days, he admitted he drank a lot and was not the best father, but he did the best he could in his retirement in Fort Myers, Florida. And we talked every day. So be careful of that surgery that these doctors want to do to scrape out whatever's in your neck. Because some people get strokes and it's very terrifying. And that leads us into our next healthcare reality. Seems like the new thing with COVID is long-term COVID and recovering. And this is now becoming the poster child for COVID infections. People are losing their arms and their legs to COVID-19. And the overweight woman with COVID in the hospital, hey, you think people should get the vaccine? I have to remain neutral. I have COVID, my father has COVID. I have nothing to say about the vaccine. Well, here are some people. Diabetes, peripheral artery disease. They were on ventilators to save their lives, and their limbs turned black because their heart could not pump out to the extremities. And they get their arms removed. This guy said he was in bed, woke up, wasn't dead, but woke up, tried to push himself out of bed, and he had no arms. He said, what happened to my arms? And they said, oh, we had to cut off your arms because they were diseased. And it's not just him, other people right here. I guess when you go through COVID, not remaining neutral, I guess you're happy to be alive. You lost your arms or your toes. Remember COVID toes? Or your feet or your legs. But if you're still alive, okay. If my arms gotta go, they gotta go. I guess that's the reasoning of the desperate. So this COVID thing's really just beginning. People are getting sick, recovering, but are they really recovered? What are they going to do with long COVID? They've already lost their arms and their legs. Another thing in the news lately is this critical race theory. Now, I am of the mind of this. I'm always open to new information. If somebody has an idea or something that is antithetical to everything I believe, I don't just shut them off and shut them down. Unless they're being rude about it or vicious about it, then I just don't listen. Even if they're on my side and they're being rude and vicious, I don't listen. But critical race theory, CRT, has been in the news a lot, and all these old white men are against it because it's going to make their white children feel bad in school. And a lot of minorities and black people support critical race theory being taught. And there are states that say it'll never be taught, this critical race theory. Texas is one of them. But what is it? How do you explain it in its finest detail? What is this thing? And I came across this very interesting explanation that I am going to share with you right now. A sociologist at Tulane University says critical race theory is a form of racial education that includes the historical experiences of black and brown people rather than avoiding it and ignoring it, with which many white Americans are more comfortable. Critical race theory is a historically evident, theoretical explanation for how white racial ideologies have been long influenced by American law. Now that's the part a lot of people miss. They think it's just about slavery and teaching people a lesson and you white people are bad because of what you did to us black people. But this takes it the next step. That these are prejudices and inequalities that are baked into the law. And that law effect has resulted in the normalizing of systemic discrimination, which in turn is supported and protected and sustained through baked-in legal justification, which is born out of racial bias and therefore inherently prejudice. So that's what we had with slavery. A slave was not a full vote. A slave was a 3/5 vote. All men are created equal unless you're a slave. That's what they're talking about. Baked in prejudices into the law from which one cannot escape, because that's the law. Oh, it's not me. If it were me, you would count for a full vote, because I'm open-minded. But this law, you're a slave, 3/5. CRT, critical race theory, is the intellectual antithesis to erasing history or whitewashing the ways in which white racial ideas and beliefs have and continue to be deeply reflected and projected institutionally against minority people. The controversy over teaching CRT is rooted in white racial privilege, fragility, and power. And we see that evidenced in the Trump movement. Look at them, look at what they're saying, look at how they behave. White racial privilege, fragility, and power. Many white Americans believe that U.S. history belongs only to them, and they alone own the rights, versions, teachings, and modes of disseminating that. So that's CRT. Take it or leave it. It's around. I don't think it's going to go anywhere anytime soon. But it's something that affects us and something that you should be wondering about, stepping forward. At least you now know what the purpose of it is. Now we move on to streaming and the internet and entertainment. We talked about West Side Story being a big flop. Well, Spider-Man, whatever it's called, the next movie, Spider-Man No Way Home, big hit, made a lot of money, which is sort of depressing. And there's a new I Love Lucy movie coming out that you know right now is just going to flop, terribly going to flop. It's already getting hit because Javier Bardem, who plays Desi Arnaz, is not Cuban. So the Cubans are saying, why can't you get a Cuban to play the Cuban? And Aaron Sorkin, who wrote and directed the movie, says that's prejudicial. Acting is acting. I'm somewhere in between on the two of those ideas. But what's interesting about Sony, who owns Spider-Man, is they really don't have a streaming service. Because streaming, I guess, is the future. The streaming market has become very crowded. Late in 2019 brought the debut of Disney Plus and Apple TV Plus, while the following year saw the launches of NBC Universal's Peacock and Paramount Plus from Viacom. Those join well-established streaming services from Netflix, Amazon, and Hulu. But the likelihood of all these offerings surviving over the long term is slim. So what's going to happen? Who is going to buy what? There are rumors that Apple should buy Netflix. Lots of consolidation. Disney owns ABC. Disney owns ESPN. Disney owns the world. But I guess not enough to get it into trouble, which I find fascinating. And over the weekend, we had a little streaming crisis with YouTube television, where they could not come to a deal, and all of the Disney stuff, all the sports channels, Disney Plus was taken off of YouTube because they could not come to an agreement. And people were upset, and YouTube said, we're giving you a $15 credit because that's how much we pay for all of this. And people were like, I paid $15 for sports channels I don't even watch. I'm glad they're gone. Right? And YouTube said, well, if you want to, you can go subscribe directly to ESPN from Disney Plus and pay $15 extra. And people said, I like having $15 more in my pocket. Well, I guess Disney heard some of those rumblings because they got very nervous and very quickly went back to Google and made a deal. The impasse threatened a significant deal, to YouTube TV's live sports offering, including ESPN's package of NBA, NHL, NCAA broadcasts, and the NFL's Monday Night Football. College football's bowl season, much of which is broadcast on ESPN, is going on right now. YouTube TV surpassed 3 million subscribers as of late 2020, according to Alphabet, the parent company of YouTube. Some financial analysts believe the subscription number has since eclipsed 4 million subscribers, which would make it the largest internet-delivered TV bundle. And YouTube TV is very interesting and very tempting. I think it's like $65 a month. It does not include internet. But you can stream from YouTube TV to your television and watch it that way. You don't have to use a cable company. This is not the first time that Google had a standoff with a media company over distribution rights. In the fall, Google's deal with NBC Universal and local NBC stations were set to expire. The companies were able to reach a new agreement quickly. A similar disagreement with Roku over distribution terms for YouTube and YouTube TV apps was resolved this month. Disney is a major player in the lucrative world of live sports streaming. One of YouTube TV's direct competitors, and perhaps its most serious, is Hulu Plus Live TV, which is controlled and majority owned by Disney. Hulu had 4 million live TV subscribers as of September, according to Variety. Now, this is from 2 years ago, and I remember this very vividly when we were with Comcast. And we lost access to a lot of our favorite channels. We lost access to WeTV and the ID Discovery channel and several other channels because Comcast could not make a deal with those stations. And our billing package did not go down in price. It stayed the same, and we weren't getting these channels. So I look back, this is from 2 years ago, in the Comcast forum. WGN America and WeTV are back. When I renewed my contract a few months ago, I could no longer access WGN America or WeTV. I signed up for Premium TV, and these channels are listed. However, when I contacted Comcast, I was told that they are no longer available for new subscribers. I wasn't new. I was simply renewing my subscription. That happened to us, too. There was no reason given as to why they still showed up as available with Premium TV. Today, while reviewing the posts, I found that both of these channels are back. Now, another channel that disappeared in a very strange way was Yes, the Yankees entertainment service, whatever. For like a year and a half, the Yankees were not on Comcast. And it was shocking. And they didn't give us back any money. They just said, too bad. And it's true that if you stayed on your same contract, which you never want to do, whenever your contract runs out, you need to go back and renegotiate because your price goes up $50 a month. You want to keep getting the best deal, and sometimes they give it to you and sometimes they will not. And we were told when we renewed, I said, okay, look, you renew at this discounted price, you're going to lose WGN, you're going to lose WeTV, you're going to lose ID, and you're going to lose the Yankees. And I said, is our price being adjusted? Well, you're getting a good deal. You're already getting a promo package, so no. And then we signed up with a new deal because you'd want $50 off your cable bill. And then you go to those channels just out of habit, trying to watch your shows, watch the Yankees, and it's not there. This channel is currently unavailable. And then you ask Comcast, I said, we told you you were going to lose those channels. And I said, but I can see them, they're there. I said, well, they're there for our older subscribers who are still part of the package. But new people, even though you're not new, you just renewed, you are considered a new viewer, and we're not giving you those channels. Okay, Dora, have fun at the dentist. Be safe. Have a wonderful day. And so you sit there and you wonder, how do these big companies get away with this? I guess it's just lack of competition. And if you try to go to Comcast and say, well, I don't want any cable package from you, I'm going with YouTube TV, I just want internet only, well, then they charge you the highest possible price. If it's bundled with home, phone, the triple play, everything's like $150 cheaper. But if you just want the internet, then you get no discount. What is it, $100 a month, something like that, just for internet. And then you have to buy YouTube TV for $65 and prices and fees, and then you begin to realize, as they want you to realize, oh boy, I should just stick with what I had with the old cable company, because they're going to find a way to charge me that it's going to be more expensive for me to go piecemeal together what I just get for them for a bundle, even though I'm not getting all of my channels. And now we sort of are getting all of our channels back, which is sort of wonderful. And with that, we're going to take one brief break, final break of the day, and we'll be back momentarily. We are back from break. Thank you for being here. I'm David Boles, Boles.tv. Live, 9 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, with a little pop-in from Jana Marie for an ASL lesson around 10:15 on Fridays, and then for a full hour on Saturday and Sunday, where Jana Marie answers questions about deafness and disability. Wonderful show on Sunday. Lots of friends showed up, had a wonderful time, sang a song together, talked about Zoom interpreting, talked about giving sign names, full of fun and reason. Now, one thing that's always concerned me that I've never really understood, and maybe you can explain it to me, and you can explain it to me here in live chat, or you can find me at david@boles.tv as an email address. You can also write to Jana at boles.tv if you want to email her. You can find me on Twitter at David Boles or on Facebook, username BOLES. I have never understood this saying, I'm trying to remember how the saying goes because I disagree with it so much that I didn't memorize it. It goes something like this. And it's not said to the person complaining, it's said to the other person. That you'll never forget how you made someone feel. People will never forget how you made them feel. Oh, that's the phrase. Okay. Now, from the very beginning, I don't get it. I'm a disconnected person. I'm an INTJ personality type. Even with those deficits, I don't get it. And somehow there's been this sea change in the last 5 to 10 years where that's the new thing. You made me feel this way, and I'm not going to forget it. Why are you making me, the theoretical me, why are you making other people responsible for your feelings? Now, if I say something, if someone says something to you that hurts your feelings, you can say, you hurt my feelings, and that person will either apologize or not apologize. Or, if somebody says something trying to hurt your feelings, you can just not let it happen. And maybe you're an open person, maybe you're a sensitive person. It hurts your feelings. Okay. Well, the fact that you have hurt feelings is not the responsibility of other people around you. You have to be responsible for managing your own feelings. And I guess that sounds cold and harsh, and who are you? So if I say something you don't like, and you decide it hurts your feelings, you're going to remember that and hold on to that and never forget it. That's the threat. Don't say anything critical. Don't say anything mean. Don't say anything that I might interpret as being insensitive, because I'm going to remember it and I'm going to hold it against you forever, because that's how you made me feel. Well, don't you make yourself feel your own feelings? I don't make you feel your feelings. You feel your feelings and you process them. And maybe you have hard feelings against me for something I said or did. But does that mean you hold it against me forever? I don't understand it. And here's where it gets really interesting. Okay. Let's flip it. And instead of something that hurts your feelings, I'm going to say something that I intend to not hurt your feelings. I'm going to say, I love you. I appreciate you. You're a valuable person. Now, those are feelings, right? You can either accept them or reject them, because they're feelings that are being expressed from me to you. Opinions, facts, truths from me to you. Now, do people say, oh, I'm going to remember forever, you said you loved me. I'm going to remember that forever. No, they don't. Now, they might remember it fondly. They might not remember it fondly, because if they don't want to be your object of affection, they're not going to forget how you made them feel. Well, how did I make you feel? You said you loved me, and I don't want your love. Okay. Well, my intention was not to hurt your feelings. My intention was not to have you hang on to that feeling forever, because I said that I loved you, and you don't love me, or you don't want to be loved, but you're going to hold on to that forever as a threat? It doesn't make sense to me. It seems as a complete manipulation, and it's new. This is a new thing that's been going on the past 10, 15 years. You better be nice to me. You better treat me the way I want to be treated, and I'm not going to tell you what it is, but if you do anything that hurts my feelings, that makes me feel a way I don't want to feel, it's your fault, and I'm going to remember it. That's the threat. I find that unseemly and unsavourable, and, dare I say, incorrigible, which I'm sure hurts very deeply the feelings of many people that I have never even met, except in this live stream. But I hope you'll consider it, because it's a fascinating topic for me. As a person who is told you're blunt and disconnected, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. I'm just answering your question. So next on the board is something that also is very interesting to me. It's this whole retro movement. And I don't understand this either, and maybe someone will explain this to me. There's a big resurgence of manual typewriters. Now, I don't know why, because if you are a professional person who makes their living typing something, you never want to see these GD things again in the rest of your life. Now, people who don't write for a living love this because they're antique, they remind them of their childhood, they're romantic, but they're not fun to use, they're very slow, making corrections is impossible without going through a whole thing. And if you like a retro typewriter, I'm sure you would love the Fred Flintstone automobile, where you can push it with your feet. Because who needs an electric car? Electric cars are fancy and new, and I like old-fashioned. Why? Why is there a return to the retro? And we talked about the $3,500 album player from Fender last week. And this retro movement is on its way up. There's a much larger demand for analog film cameras. Why? Why would you want to go back to a film camera when you have your iPhone that takes an instant picture? It takes you away from having to use a computer for everything in your life. Who doesn't want to use a computer for everything in their life? I get 100,000 things done faster using a computer than I do using a typewriter and a film camera. The retro aesthetic has become so popular that mobile apps like Dispo, which requires you to wait a day before viewing your photos, are used for the sole reason of mimicking the miserable experience of a disposable camera. Who are these people? What's wrong with these people? Why intentionally downgrade a $1,000 iPhone camera to mimic a $13 camera? Why is the question? Or write on a device without spell check or a delete key. Now, typewriters are good for addressing envelopes. I do admit that. Envelopes on a computer and a laser printer are impossible. Some researchers would say the answer lies in the 20-year cycle of nostalgia. In the 2020s, Y2K is all the rage. Others defend the golden 40-year rule, arguing the prime site of nostalgia is always whatever happened, or is thought to have happened, in a decade between 40 and 50 years past. Count me out. I'll take my iPhone and my computer all day. I'm not interested in going back to a typewriter. And now on to something that's really important. It looks like we're in for a civil war. Speaking of retro ideas, in the United States. All the evidence appears to point to it. We're going down that path where we're going to have one side who wants to kill us and the other side who says, I don't want to die, but if you make me fight you, I will fight you. The United States is no longer the world's oldest continuous democracy. That honor is now held by Switzerland, followed by New Zealand, and then Canada. We are no longer a peer to nations like Canada or Costa Rica and Japan, which are all rated 10 plus on the Polity Index. Dropping 5 points in 5 years greatly increases the risk of civil war. 6 points in 3 years would qualify as a high risk of a civil war in the United States. A partial democracy is 3 times as likely to experience civil war as a full democracy. A country standing on this threshold, as America is now, at +5, can easily be pushed toward conflict through a combination of bad governance and increasingly undemocratic measures that further weaken its institutions. It seems parts of the United States have never lost their old retro feel for the Civil War. They look at it fondly. Others have reached similar findings. The Stockholm-based International Institute for Democracy put the United States on a list of backsliding democracies in a report last month. The United States, a bastion of global democracy, fell victim to authoritarian tendencies itself. And a new survey by the academic consortium, Bright Line Watch, found that 70% of those who identify strongly as Republicans support the use of violence to restore Trump to power, and 39% favor doing everything possible to prevent Democrats from governing effectively. So that seems to be a pretty clear declaration of war against the middle and the left from the far right. And how would that civil war come about? What would happen? Well, when authoritarians take over one party but not the other, pursuing a balance is a gift to anti-democratic forces. And when democracy itself is under attack, horse race coverage between those attacking democracy and those defending it becomes indefensible. And that means that mainstream journalism is not calling out the side that wants insurrection, the side that wants to overturn the government. We have to be fair to both sides. And when one side is saying, I want the destruction of the United States, you don't give them equal footing with the people who say, we want a democracy and we don't want civil terrorism tearing down our country. You cannot do that. And that's exactly what the media are doing. Oh, we have to hear both sides. Have to be fair and balanced. U.S. media needs to start championing an unapologetic pro-democracy bias before it's too late. Some journalistic biases are corrosive. But it will never be a mistake for reporters to side with democracy and the truth, even if that means condemning authoritarians and liars from one party far more often than another. When reality is asymmetric, not equal, balanced reporting is deception. Absolutely true. For journalists who are conditioned to reflexively shy away from taking stances, this adaptation may not come easily. That's why some outlets have ended up in the absurd situation in which they appear to balance out scandals between the parties. One day they're covering a Republican congressman who has associated with white nationalists, who voted to overturn an election, and who tweeted out an anime video depicting himself murdering another member of Congress. Just another day in Congress. Another day, it's a Democratic scandal. Vice President Harris is paranoid because she doesn't use Bluetooth headphones as a national security precaution. Or she bought a $300 pot in which to cook her stew. This is a problem, and journalists need to fix it. They need to start calling out the really, really bad intentions and not equating them with smaller things happening on the other side. Well, this congressman wants to kill AOC, but nobody likes the vice president. Let's report them both equally, and that's what's happening. It's absolutely ridiculous. So how is this Civil War going to be fomented and won? Well, it's very interesting. Of particular concern are the self-styled constitutional sheriffs. There are 3,000 of them in the United States. And they are an increasingly influential subset of sheriffs who are subverting not only reform efforts, but also core Democrat principles. These constitutional sheriffs assert that they have power not only to enforce the law, but to be the supreme and ultimate arbiters of what the law is in their local county, contending that their authority supersedes that of all other government officials, including governors and the president. They refuse to enforce a range of public safety laws, from local mask mandates to state and federal gun laws. And there you have it. That's how the takeover begins. In the small villages, in the dell, where the local sheriff says, whatever the law is, I'm the law. And those sheriffs base their claim to power on their oath to uphold the Constitution. If their assertion brings to mind the anti-government militia-supporting Oath Keepers organization, you are right on track. Richard Mack, founder of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, was a longtime board member of the Oath Keepers, and the constitutional sheriff idea has explicitly white supremacist roots. Given that Mack has called the federal government the greatest threat we face today, it is no surprise that constitutional sheriffs have expressed support for the January 6th insurgency. And it is completely on brand that the 2016 Sheriff of the Year tried to recruit other constitutional sheriffs to help him seize Dominion voting machines in 2020. And that, my Boles.tv friend, is the State of the Union. The unglorification of the human condition. We're eating plastic and pooping it out and making us sick. We're not getting any relief for our student loans. And we have local sheriffs enforcing their own rules and morality on the rest of us. And because it's happening in small places, it's not really being reported. And the rest of us are wondering and suffering and wondering how we can get out of this mess. And so instead of dealing with the reality that's surrounding us and threatening us, we choose instead to go back and think retro and typewriters and old bicycles, instead of contemplating what's happening in the reality around us. The past is very sufficient in calming modern-day nerves and skittishness. And I do not believe that's a good thing. We need to stay focused. We need to move forward. We need to technically advance with each other as best as possible. We need to beware and guard our own feelings. We cannot allow other people to hurt our feelings. We cannot allow other people to influence our thoughts or our concepts of democracy. Because if we tell these people coming after us, you've hurt my feelings, you've taken my democracy from me, they're not going to care. And if we try to assert ourselves, we really cannot be fearful of hurting their feelings or of setting them right on the meaning of the Constitution and the democratic way. These are all the questions we try to deal with here every day on Boles.tv. I'm David Boles. I thank you so much for joining us today. We're back tomorrow, bright and early, 9 a.m. If you have any thoughts or consequences or feedback on this or any other stream, I invite you to contact me, David at Boles.tv, via email, on Twitter at David Boles, on Facebook, BOLES, Boles, Instagram, Boles Books. And until tomorrow, I bid you good day, take care, be well, be safe, protect your feelings, and be assertive in getting the kind of democracy you want. Thank you for being here.